This is part 2 of some learning concepts that we'll do at the very beginning that will guide us as we practice and think about how to problem solve our way through learning. There's a cellist teacher at Rice University in Houston. He's probably one of the top 5 people in the country and maybe in the world that teaches cello. His name is Fisher, Norman Fisher. And he says resistance causes mistakes. So when you're making mistakes, it's caused by resistance. I guess that means lack of mastery, although I like the concept that, for instance, if electric current isn't going through a piece of wire because it's old and it's not conducting very well, then it gets hot and there's resistance and eventually it shorts out, which is the mistake. But he says there can be mental resistance and there can be physical resistance, and we want to demonstrate this and have you experience this. Although this requires you to interact, it's different than a training assignment because it's an object lesson that you interact with to learn something rather than this leading to an assignment or something like that, okay? So there's a handout that you have with this, and it's got a bunch of the elements in it. I got to think about how to do this. It goes, and strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Okay, it's the second half of the first half of the periodic table. Okay, so without looking at it, I'd like you to sing with me. So don't look at it on the page. Here we go. Strontium and silicon. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. And strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Can't do it probably. Probably you either looked down or you just went like, I can't do this, or something, or you got lost after the first couple. You can kind of cheat a bit by looking at my mouth and sort of going along, okay? So that's mental resistance. You can't sing that because you don't know it well enough. It's not in your head well enough, okay? Now, this time look at it, okay? Look at it and sing it. Here we go, ready? 1, 2, ready, go. And strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Better? Your reading it helps alleviate some of that mental resistance. However, it's possible that it's too much of a tongue twister. Let's just see, okay? You can look at it, and remember, if you can't sing on pitch, don't worry about it. Just say it in time, but, try. Here we go, ready? 1, 2, ready, go. And strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Faster. 1, 2. And strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Okay? By the way, I'm doing it memorized and I'm playing ukulele, so, it's okay. I've been practicing it for a long time. Let's go faster. And strontium and silicon, silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Okay. At some point, maybe you stayed up with me. That would be great. But many of you will have been like, I could do it when we went slower, but I couldn't do it as we got faster. And maybe there was a place where it was difficult, specifically like strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Bismuth, bromine, bismuth, bromine, lithium, strontium, silicon, silver, and samarium, bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Okay, there's a tongue twister in there, and that would be an example of physical resistance, right? You just can't do it fast enough because it's difficult. So that's where now that you know those two things, you can say, well, what needs to happen? For instance, you can alleviate mental resistance by reading it, but you can alleviate it more by practicing it and memorizing it, right? So you could get flashcards and have them in order and guess what the next one is and the next one is and the next one is. Or you could partner sing with somebody and just do it a lot until you could do each other's parts like that. That's getting mental resistance out of the way. But even if you could write them all out, right, immediately without delay, maybe your mouth can't say and strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Because bismuth might be very difficult for you because you have a lisp, like I kind of do, right? And in that case, when you identify that, you have to slow it down, break it into pieces, or maybe make accommodations. And strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, Maybe you don't say bismuth, you just say bismuth, bromine, and you drop the th because it's getting in the way. And the faster you go, it's it's fine. And that's actually a singing technique. That tune is the Modern Major General song from Pirates of Penzance, and I got to play that part on the Leavenworth Summer Theater last summer, or I don't know what year you're watching this in, but a summer ago. And the last verse of that is an encore where you go as quickly as you can, and you go in fact, when I know what's meant by mammal and unravel, when I can tell the sight of miles away from a javelin, when such a vessel is in the prices of more idiot, and when an open sight would not become a set yet, etc., etc. And you go as quick as you can, and the audience is like, oh, well, I mean, I knew the part really, really well, but I also knew that the most difficult part was the very beginning to go, in fact, when I know what is meant. In fact, when I know what is meant by mammal and unravel, and that fact gets in the way. And even though I practiced it again and again and again and slowly in all kinds of situations, it gets in the way. And what you do is you just get rid of the ta. In fact, when I know what is meant by mamelon, instead of in fact, what I know what is meant. So there are tricks, mechanical tricks that you can do to alleviate the physical resistance. The point is, you need to be aware that those two things exist. And if you want to make your practice useful and you want to achieve really, really well and high quality fluency in whatever you're doing, if you can conceptualize properly and diagnose which one of those problems it is, then you are better at addressing and fixing that. Now, that being said, repetition of all kinds usually just helps both of them. If you practice it a lot mentally, then you probably have micro muscle training going on, and if you say it a lot physically, it helps you mentally. So there is, a sort of cure-all, which is just lots and lots of repetition. But the more difficult the problem, the more specialized the remedy, and the more effective it will be. On a board I had written with the gears, I had what's the value of the repetition? Right? And we didn't really talk about that, okay? But I want you to think about swinging an axe and going and chopping wood. If your axe is really, really sharp, then every time you swing that axe, it takes all your force to that edge or that point and helps it be very effective in cutting and chopping wood. If you have a dull axe, you can swing all day long and get very little done, and it'll be backbreaking and sore and unsatisfying. And so, if you say, I've got to practice this, to the degree that you can really figure out, is it mental, is it physical, what's the actual kind of problem, and how do you address it, then you're doing effective work. And there's nothing worse than practicing all day and getting nothing done, unless you just love the sheer physicality of the sound, which is fine, I guess. So there's that. There will be some quizzes and things that come up eventually, but let's just make you think about this for a minute. If you're practicing your music and your music's on the ground to the side of you or on your bed beside you, and you have to turn sideways like this, you're physically making it difficult for you to play the instrument properly. If you're not holding the instrument properly, and we'll get into that in another video, and that's, if your wrists are in weird places, if you're not doing things correctly, if you've allowed yourself to slip into a bad habit like that, then you're making your practice more difficult than it needs to be. Think about it like this. If you were going to go run a race, you wouldn't run a race with two oddly matched sneakers where they're both left, right, and one doesn't fit you. You'd want to have those correct. You want to take away every physical impediment that you can have so that you can just do your very best. That's true in all cases. If you've got your phone on and you're getting Reddit or text alerts and things like that, then you're not giving yourself the mental capacity that you should. Um, if you are, if you've stayed up all night playing Animal Crossing, because you wanted to see what kind of fish you could catch at night or something like that, and you're strung out and you're tired or you've been partying or something, then your studying is not going to be very useful. I can't stress how much that's true. People don't seem to get that when they study or when they practice, but it's better to get, a minimum amount of time where you're really fresh and the technique that you're applying is excellent and excellently applied, and then you'll see results if you do that over time, right? Okay, resistance, mental, physical, diagnosing which. No, it might be a small online quiz like that. We will always look to that and have you self-evaluate as well, because that helps us figure out what the correct remedy to make your practice or study more effective is. Okay, great.